Orale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is the kickoff episode of the NFL Insider Series, Familia. And hey, you know what? We're going in the middle of the country. We're going in the middle of the country, but it's somewhere that's very, very caliente, very caliente right now. So a lot of great news. But I want to make sure you're checking out Familia FFB on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe because we're going 32 for 32, Familia. We're getting insiders like our buen amigo. Yeah, amigo, James Boyd coming to us from the Athletic. I mean, just one of the, when it comes to his Twitter handle, he calls himself the Romeoville Kid. So at the Romeoville Kid, but for us, for our familia, he is el hombre when it comes to all things Colts. James, muchas gracias for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back.
Appreciate that, man. Excited to be back.
No, this is great. I mean, you know what? I think since last year, there's been so much chatter about the Indianapolis Colts, and a lot of it centers around number 5. Anthony Richardson. Those 4 games, especially the 2 full games that he played, he was one of the most electrifying players out on the field. And you had said that there were things that you were seeing that could be special. But he's coming off of that injury, and you've covered this very, very closely in OT and in the 1% Better podcast, the athletic podcast that is really good. You talked at length about him taking some unexpected days off, making some left-handed throws, unintended, not like Patrick Mahomes in games, but so I wanted to see kind of like, first off, like what your eyes told you on where he is, where I think on the Pat McAfee show that was tagged in one of your most recent articles on his appearance, he had talked about how he was expected to start throwing for 8 months, and he actually started throwing at 5. And so 8 months is actually kind of like right now. But I want to know what your eyes saw, and kind of like as we progress toward the season and hopefully a healthy season for him.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest question I get around here is, can he stay healthy? And if he stays healthy, I think he could be special. I will say his arm talent, seeing it back, fully again, is special. He can rip it. He can throw with the best of them. He showed no signs of not being able to mechanically do anything. So that's obviously a good thing coming off of the AC joint surgery. But I'll add that throughout, the spring, he hadn't had any limitations until the very end of veteran minicamp, where I believe on the second to last day, he kind of didn't really do much. And we're like, okay, that's something to note. Then the next day they sat him out because they were just saying he had some soreness in his shoulder, which I think has kind of been understated. He did come back faster. He told us, because I asked him point blank, we talked about the Pat McAfee show, on that same show, he said he was at about 95%. And I was like, what does that exactly mean? And he was like, well, I think it's overall football, not just how I physically feel, but just playing football again. However, he added that the doctors really didn't think that I was going to be 100% ready or cleared and all that type of stuff until training camp began. So I think that's the new timeline I will personally work off of. Whereas I'm like, okay, we get to training camp end of July, early August, and you're still having to take days off because your shoulder is feeling a little sore. That's something to note. But I think as far as his growth as a player, his maturity, you can see it in the way he carries himself. He doesn't act like a rookie anymore. Now, I can't say he doesn't play like one because he didn't play much. But I think they're in a good spot. No one was worrying about his shoulder. No one was freaking out. But obviously, the more this pain sort of lingers, it becomes a thing, unfortunately. And especially here in Indianapolis, I don't have to, recap all the history. But Andrew Luck is still a big scar here. And so they hope that, Anthony can be healthy and he can be special and he can be dynamic, because I do think that there were flashes last year where you see the explosion, the explosive plays. And with him, one of the big things I've hit on is his completion percentage might not be 70, 73 or whatever it is, with the superstar quarterbacks, but the big plays might offset that. So he might have a game where he, only completes 50% of his passes, or maybe it's under 50%. But if 4 or 5 of those passes are for 15, 17, 23, 13 yards, then you're looking at an explosive player. So I'm excited to see him in action again for sure.
He talked about the fact that he's not gonna like tone down his playing style. I mean, and there were some plays that maybe he should have slid, maybe he should have stepped out of bounds, something like that. I mean, I think the people who've watched Lamar Jackson play and how elusive and how well he takes care of his body, and his injuries have been on passing plays, not on running plays.
Mm-hmm.
But has there been talking from Shane Steichen about him trying to protect himself a little bit better?
We've asked him that question, and they've said that they have to be smart with him, but there has really been no indication they're going to change completely what they do and how they use him. And I think part of you drafted him to be dynamic. Obviously, you hope that he can be durable. You hope that he can hold up. But I think if you change the offense too much, try to make him a pure pocket passer, you take away one of the elements that makes him special and makes him really special when we come to fantasy football. Obviously, you want quarterbacks that can do everything, right? And I think he's one of those types of quarterbacks where he can make the big throws, make the big runs, and things like that. And I think with his mentality, it'll come down to, let's say it's 3rd and 8, second quarter, week 7 or something, and he can probably get the 8 yards by lowering his shoulder, but he accepts the 6 and they punt because he slides instead. I think that those types of scenarios where it's like you lose the battle but stay in the war, those are the ones where I'm going to be like, okay, he's growing up a little bit, because as you know, to be a quarterback in this league, you can't always go make the Superman play. You can't always hold on to the ball. You can't always try to get the first down. You have to, kind of, know when to fold them. And so I'm curious to see how much he matures in that aspect. But he mentioned last year, and I agree with him, he wasn't really super reckless last year. The play he got hurt on wasn't a reckless play. It was just an unlucky play. It was honestly a routine tackle that happened. And so I just hope that he can stay healthy. And I do think the Colts will still utilize him as a runner because he's a gifted runner, especially in short yardage situations. Like 4th and 1, good luck stopping him when him and JT are, lined up in the backfield.
And that's the thing. I mean, when you look at him, isn't really the sky the limit when you talk about if he's fully unleashed with really someone who has shown himself to be an expert play caller in Shane Steichen. Is it really the sky the limit? Just health and regular maturation as a quarterback?
I think so. I think there's definitely going to be growing pains. That first multiple interception game that he has, I'm sure Twitter's going to burn, and I'm going to be all in the mentions, and people are going to be telling me he's a bust and all that. You know how it goes when you're a top quarterback. However, I think that Shane will put him in a lot of situations that are optimal. And I give him a lot of credit for that because I really saw how great of a play caller Shane Steichen was last year when Jonathan Taylor was out for a couple weeks. Obviously, Anthony Richardson went down early, and their offense was still able to generate points and really able to generate plays that put their players in the best opportunities to succeed. The plays didn't always work, but I think that Shane is a brilliant play caller. I think that he really is a football guru type. And I think that he's sort of innovative too. Some of the plays that we saw last year from the misdirection things he did with Anthony Richardson early, those are the things that I think that they can even build on, especially if him and John Taylor are healthy. Because, for listeners out there, I don't think people realize they had 2 snaps together last year. That's it. Only 2. Because the week that John Taylor came back, off the PUP list, come back from all the contract disputes, was the same week that Anthony got hurt. And that was it. And so, the buzz around here is like, if we get both of those guys, those super athletes in the backfield together, again, good luck stopping them. There'll be some explosive plays just by default because you got 2 guys you got to account for, and eventually you're going to guess wrong.
I want to jump into Taylor real quick because, bringing it up, how much does the threat of Anthony Richardson running and passing, how much is it going to make teams not be able to throw 8 men in a box just to try and stop Jonathan Taylor?
I think that's the key. And I think it would have worked with any running back. And you look at some of these, top dual threat quarterbacks, their running backs usually aren't even big names like that, but they can get a lot of yardage because you're so concerned with Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, running that the misdirection and the, mistaking of the eyes can create another lane for a running back. Now you take that and you supercharge it with the running back who's already proven to be great, even in a more traditional scheme. I think you're going to see some special runs and some special plays. And so I think JT's hungry, not only as a player to play with Anthony, but to sort of reestablish himself as one of the best running backs in the league. So we've got a taste of that last year in the regular season finale when they lost to Houston. I believe he had 30 carries for $188, and he looked special. And I was like, wow. And then I look up and I'm like, wow, you're only 25? You think, it's 2 years ago he was a rushing champ, and I'm like, that was only 2 or 3 years ago at this point. It's going to be 3 at this point. And so I think that he's going to be very special. I think that Anthony obviously helps as far as some of the misdirection things, but JT is hungry. And also, for some of your listeners out there, don't sleep on him as a pass catcher as well. I think that he's going to, show some of those capabilities. And if Anthony, again, matures and takes a check down sometimes, I think JT is going to be there to gain, a few first downs that way too.
Oh, phenomenal. That was my follow-up question. So, well, let's jump into the pass catchers real quick. Michael Pittman got paid, so we don't have to worry about that. I think just that number establishes he's numero uno in this passing game. Can you give me an idea of the pecking order?
So obviously, like you said, Michael Pittman Jr. got paid like a wide receiver 1. He is the wide receiver 1. He's the guy. Whatever down, whatever distance, whatever play, there's probably a good chance you throw it his way, he's going to catch it. He also doesn't miss any games. Like, he's very durable. So for, fantasy drafters out there, you want a guy who's going to be in lineup every week, he's one of those types of guys. I do think after him is Josh Downs. He's kind of been slept on, I think, this offseason because of the buzz around Adonai Mitchell and obviously Anthony Richardson coming back. You only have so many storylines. But I think Josh Downs had a really kind of slept on year. He set the record last year for rookie receptions by a Colt. And this is a franchise that had, Reggie Wayne, had Marvin Harrison Jr., had Michael Pittman Jr. And so I think Josh Downs is the player who could be really special. He gets open in very tight windows. He's going to be their slot guy. He can win in the slot against pretty much anybody. And even though he's undersized, I think he proved last year that he can still be a very competent player at the pro level. A lot of question marks coming out of North Carolina was, is he big enough to make plays? He made a ton of big plays, even at his stature. And then third, where all of the buzz is now is it going to be Adonai Mitchell or Alec Pierce? Now, Alec Pierce has been a bit underwhelming. Not all of his fault because he's had so many different quarterbacks. And granted, Gardner Minshew did a good job last year as the backup. He still couldn't push the ball down the field, which is Alec Pierce's strength. But I will say, Adonai Mitchell, he has been my spring standout. If I had to pick one, he made a play pretty much every single day that we were there and available to watch practice as the media, whether it was rookie minicamp, OTAs, veteran minicamp. He came prepared, and the guy is explosive. He catches the ball with his hands. He moves his body kind of weird. He has a weird way of contorting his body, but it works for him. He can make a lot of contested catches. And so I don't want to be too high on him. Obviously, there's going to be a learning curve going from, the SEC to the NFL and facing, I would assume, some really good cornerbacks throughout the NFL. But I would say I'm a little bit higher on him than I was going in because he's proven so far that he can be a playmaker. And one of the best compliments you can get from a quarterback is he gets open. And that's exactly what Anthony Richardson told us about Adonai Mitchell. And just to, I guess, get everyone else riled up, Adonai Mitchell saying, hey, when I see Anthony, it's like a video game. He's like a creative player. He can do things that other quarterbacks can't do. And then, Anthony's saying, well, he's a wide receiver that can do stuff that others can't do. And just athletically, the big thing we use around here is RAS score, your relative athletic score. Mm-hmm. If you look that up, Anthony, I believe, was like a perfect 10. And then Adonai Mitchell was like a 9.9. And so they're super athletes. Adonai Mitchell is a super athlete. I think that he will have a realistic chance to become the undisputed wide receiver 3. He might not be that way to start the season, but I think he's a guy that can really push for and command some more targets.
And when a good friend of mine who works for Football Guys, his name is Jeff Bell, he pointed out to me on a previous episode that every bowl game that Adonai Mitchell played in, he scored a touchdown, whether it was a Texas or a Georgia. So a big, he's the guy that teams looked at. So I mean, gosh, with those 3 guys and Jonathan Taylor catching passes, any leftovers for tight ends for those people who are hoping for a Jelani Woods revival?
So that's a great question. I do think that the tight end position is wide open. They have a few different guys in their roster. They have obviously Jelani Woods. They have Mo Ali Cox, who's the veteran. They have Colin Granson, who's kind of the speedster. They have Will Mallory. They also have Drew Ogletree, who's off the commissioner's exempt list and back with the team. And so when you look at all the different guys, they don't have a true number one. But if I had to pick a player or a tight end who could be their number one at that position, it will be Jelani. I think that he has all of the tools to be that person. He hasn't shown it yet. And obviously there's some scare there because he missed all of last year with the hamstring injuries. He had to basically rework his entire offseason program, his body, his diet, his trainers, everything. He had to break himself down basically and build himself back up. But I will say throughout, veteran mini camp, throughout OTAs, he had some moments and he looked good. He can run with the best of them. I can't forget how big he is. Sometimes he's 6'7", 6'7", about 250 probably. He can move, and he's another super freaky, athlete. And so I think that he's hungry to prove that he's got more in the tank and he can be that number one guy. And I think the Colts are excited about it. And then when you pair that with Shane Steichen and what he's done with tight ends throughout his career, I think that if you give him a guy as versatile as Jelani, good things could happen. But like Anthony Richardson, it's just, can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, I think that Jelani Woods could really push to be that tight end one and make some things, difficult, as far as decision-making with the roster. How many tight ends do you keep if Jelani has a huge summer and proves, hey, this is my spot and I'm the guy you need?
Outstanding. I think we hit all the main offensive guys who could be fantasy viable. I wanted to get kind of the state of the offensive line, just kind of how do they shape up to keep number 5 upright?
Yeah, so obviously they had a huge bounce back year last year compared to 2022, where they gave up, I believe, the second most sacks in the league. Last year they were a lot better, a lot more formidable. They were moving people. Everyone on that offensive line, I think, looked like how they were supposed to. Quentin Nelson was back to, being at a better level. I know he's a Pro Bowler every year, and people are like, what do you mean back at the same level? He said that, not me. Like, he felt like in 2022, he wasn't up to the standard that he wanted to be. And then in 2023, he bounced back. Obviously, Ryan Kelly looked good. The only question mark right now with this group, and I even think that Will Fry is at right tackle, right guard, and Bernard Ryman at left tackle, they stepped up. The question mark is Braden Smith at right tackle. He's coming off knee surgery. We don't know what exactly it's for. He wouldn't say, but he's been out pretty much this entire offseason, been out a couple months. Not a huge deal now, but it's something to keep an eye on going forward, because I do think when he was in there in that lineup, he was really good for that team. It's just that he pushed himself to literally the point of not being able to play anymore. Like, his knee basically gave out in the last game of the season. He just couldn't go anymore. He gave them everything they had. He had the offseason knee surgery. He should be, I would assume we'll get an update throughout the offseason that he can be ready by week 1. We haven't got that definitively, but I do think that he should be ready by then. However, Blake Freeland, the second-year tackle out of BYU, has been filling in for him. He's filled in for him throughout all of last year as well. He's got some good experience. I think their offensive line is in a very good spot. It's just, can it be in an even better spot if Braden Smith is healthy? Because that guy, they paid him, like a, big-time right tackle. And he's proven to be really good when he's available. And so he hasn't been a super injured guy throughout his career anyway. And so he hopes that he can bounce back and be ready. And so I think that this offensive line is in a much better headspace. They're excited. They're ready to maul people, with some of the RPO and misdirection things that they'll do. And obviously, like you said, you have to make sure you keep Anthony Richardson upright. That's your number one job. And so I expect them to take that job very seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Numero uno is to keep number 5 clean.
Absolutely.
Even though they're even playing on turf, they got to keep them clean. I want to switch real quick hit on the other side of the ball. You made me sound really smart last year when you talked about because I quoted you a lot, especially early in the season, how the Colts were rebuilding their secondary. And in fact, one of the most fun games of the season was the Rams against the Colts, where they just they traded blows. I mean, that was like an Avengers movie watching that game. It was fun. I know that one of your most recent articles in The Athletic, you're talking about really keeping an eye on who's going to win in the secondary.
Yes.
Where does the secondary and maybe kind of how they shape up against the run?
So I'll start with, their D line is in a very good position. They drafted Laiatu Latu, who's supposed to be this dynamic pass rusher. They showed that they had enough to kind of get to the quarterback last year. They like to, more pressure overall, but who doesn't in the NFL, right? So the strength of their defense will be their D line. But like you said, and like I've written, there's some questions in that secondary. I think the only solidified or two solidified spots, you got strong safety with Julian Blackman, who's coming off a career year, and you got the slot cornerback with Kenny Moore, who came off a Pro Bowl caliber year himself. He's a very good player. Julian's a very good player. The other two cornerback spots, you have Juju Brents, who's a second-year, cornerback. He's also a second-round pick last year. Assuming he can stay healthy, which is, again, a big assumption, but assuming he can stay healthy, he's their other start on the outside. I think that the opposite of him is a question mark. Is it Dallas Flowers or is it Jalen Jones? Right now, I believe Jalen Jones is in the lead. For those who don't know, he was a 2023 seventh-round pick, worked his way up the depth chart, earned a starting role towards the middle of last year amid all the injuries, but he's not a proven commodity. And then who's behind him is Dallas Flowers. He's not a proven commodity either. He's coming off an Achilles tear. And the Colts haven't signed any other starting caliber outsiders to their team. They brought back most of their guys, but they haven't signed a starting caliber cornerback. They're banking on, at least so far, one of these guys, Dallas Flowers and Jalen Jones, stepping up and being that third starting cornerback. And all I'm saying is they haven't proven enough for me to just say, I know they're going to be good. I know they're going to get the job done. I don't know that. I didn't know that last year. That's why I was telling you, just keep your eyebrows raised. I don't know about the secondary. And then as far as free safety, it's the same story. You have Nick Cross, who they traded up to draft a few years ago. They believed he was a first-round talent. He hasn't really done much. Rodney Thomas II had a really good rookie year in 2022, regressed last year. So it's between Rodney and Nick Cross at that free safety spot. And again, neither are proven. Neither have enough tape or years for me to say this is who they are as a player. They could be really good. They could be really not so good. And so I'm curious to see what they do, because the Colts have been very conservative with their offseason moves. And really, their only big upgrade was, aside from their draft picks, was banking on a healthy Anthony Richardson. But he doesn't play defense. So I'm like, he ain't going to be in the secondary. I know he said he played safety in high school. Brother, the safety days are over. So I'm curious to see who can step up in that secondary, because I think it's still, like last year, a weak spot for this team. And I do think that they're going to get tested early and often to see, okay, you run it back with these guys, are they ready? And if they aren't, it's going to be a conversation that we have with Chris Ballard, like, hey, we told you, we asked you all summer about this secondary. You told us that they're ready. And if they're not, that's the only person you can blame is you.
Well, I'll tell you this, from the fantasy standpoint, we'd love to see more shootouts. So, to have to have Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman and the crew just to actually have to trade blows with another team. And Shane Steichen dialing up the plays. I think it'd be kind of fun to watch that. So, even if it's just for the early part of the season, we'll take it. But I tell you, one of the things that I've really kind of excited about is just seeing competent quarterback play, and just top-notch players on the dome teams, because it's kind of been a regression on that over the last few years. But now to see someone in Indianapolis who's a dude, a guy in Houston who's a dude. Atlanta is now getting an upgraded quarterback. So just those teams, because I think, especially late in the season, it's so much more fun to be watching those games instead of the games where it's like 5 degrees or something like that. So
don't tell the defense that, but I completely agree. I mean, hey, you score more touchdowns, there's a few more players you can talk to afterward.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, mi amigo. Well, first off, I just want to see any, we're Familia FFB and we talked Mexican food last year. Any new discoveries that you had recently?
I don't know if I've had new discoveries. Well, actually, no, I tried burrito tacos for the first time, where you dip them and all that. That was great. I mean, I loved it. That was fantastic. And Mexican food is my favorite food, whether it's a fajita, quesadilla, taco, whatever. I'll eat it all, enchilada. And I think that, it's been fun to explore different places here in Indianapolis. And even ask some of my friends, whenever I go to a city now, it's like, okay, what are they known for? If they're known for Mexican, I'll just ask Twitter, and usually somebody's from this area. Hey, go to this spot, ask for this meal, ask for this person sometimes. And so it's been a lot of fun, embracing myself or immersing myself in the food and the culture that way. And it's always a good time.
Yeah, birria is, and the great thing about it is you don't need to put too much on it. You don't need sauce,
Exactly.
I mean, literally, like what I like on it is just like a little cilantro and onion. That's it.
There you go.
That's it.
So look, you ain't got to be. That's what I love about it. It works. If it works, I ain't got to do too much with it. We start putting a lot of stuff on stuff. That's when it doesn't taste too good to begin with. So when it comes ready and all I got to do is a little something, I'm good.
And I remember you said you don't like the heat to get turned up too high. So
No.
that's
Like I
perfect.
think that's a cultural
Nice in
thing.
that
If I was,
medium range.
yeah, I'm about to say if I was born into it and I had these spicy things from birth, then that's one thing. But I'm like, nah, I don't think I'll ever get fully on that side of it.
Oh man, amigo, I love this. Love this. You packed so much into this. We didn't just get 1% better with that. We got way more than 1% better right
That's
now.
what's
So
up.
please pump anything you want.
Well, I would just say, check me out on social media. I'm at RomeoVille Kid. You can follow me on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. And I'll say that as well as the, fantasy things that we collaborated on, I have some other things I got to do myself. Just stay tuned. I'm working on some bigger, features and stories on different people. Cause I do like the background stories as well. Like what makes a person who they are, what drives them, how they got to where they are, those types of things. So as much as we care about, stats and fantasy and things like that, I also care about the reality of who they are too. So I'm excited about this off season. Excited to get some time off and then hit the ground running in July.
Oh, love it, love it. Yeah, love those stories that those long form human interest stories that really get you to know the players. So, muchas gracias, mi amigo. This is fantastic. This is fantastic as always. You hit a home run for us. So, and thank you all for joining us. Muchas gracias. And remember, follow Familia FFB on YouTube. Get it, hit it, like, hit it, subscribe, set up those notifications because you're going to be surprised how many of these are going to be churning up between now and the beginning of training camp. So hey, you know what? James is our leadoff hitter. We're going to hit home runs all over the summer this year. So also remember, follow me at Jorge Martin 17 on Twitter. And also, if you want this on audio, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, just like and subscribe. So otra vez, James, thank you. Muchas gracias. Everybody, remember, todos somos familia. Salud.